Good morning and happy Veterans Day to our veterans out there, and happy Remembrance Day to us Canadians. Uh, Super excited. First real episode. Well, not really. Second episode. Premiere episode was Thursday of Mayday Moments. And so I'm here with my co host, Mark Rothenberg. And so welcome to our show. And Mark, any opening things that you want to say here before we bring on our amazing guests?
Well, it's kind of a little bit, excited today, a little bit nervous, I'll be honest. Being our first live show. And we've tried to work without a net, but with a recording, you always know that you kind of have that, even though we don't use it. Really excited for our guests coming on today to talk about some of their experiences in the military. Two veterans that have become two very close, very good friends of mine that Darth and I have both worked with, both spent some time with, and got to know over the last few months. Just to try to make this Veterans Day a little more special than, for those of you out there, welcome to the Mayday moment. Thank you for joining us. And let's bring in John and John.
John's two.
John squared.
Good. John squared. There we go. Welcome, gentlemen, to the show. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. How are you today? And thank you for your service, both of you.
Thank you.
And happy Veterans Day. And
Appreciate
to your spouses, if you have a spouse, thank them too. I know John Callery does. So John, thank your spouse for her service as well, because you couldn't do your job if she wasn't at home taking care of the house. So thank her as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I will.
So, gentlemen, who wants to go first? Or how are we doing this, Mark?
Yeah. Mark?
You know what? That's a good question because we are unscripted. We just kind of free flow, but we'll start with John Callery. Air Force vet, and correct me if I get something wrong because I'm running on 2 hours of sleep. Air Force vet, works with me and Dorothy with Heroes, Badges, and Warriors. All around great guy. Does some amazing work with the community in the Tampa Bay area. And he'll talk about, give him a chance to talk about his event that's coming up at some point. But being that we're focused more on the mental health aspect of things, and I know mental health is near and dear to John as well. And I want to talk about your service. What did you do in the Air Force? What's some of the experiences? And just kind of give you that forum to talk and share what's on your mind.
Well, thank you. Thank you. As everybody said, Air Force vet, I was enlisted. I did maintenance management analytics for the Air Force, which is doing statistical analysis of the aircraft and the maintenance of their performance. And then I also ran databases for the Air Force as well. I had a career of about 13 years, got hurt, then was medically separated. For me, it was a wonderful ride. I really loved the people that I got to connect with. A lot of them are still connected to this day. It's definitely a different breed now that I'm out here in the civilian sector. There's a lot of big differences for me, not just in the little things, but the intangibles that the military and first responders bring to a job that a lot of the civilian world doesn't necessarily get taught or have been exposed to. So for me, it was an interesting career. Got to work with a lot of different people, a lot of different aircraft, and see the world. So it was a really good time for me.
So what were some of the difficulties that you had transitioning out of the military?
For me, transitioning actually was difficult because of my specialty, I guess you could say. A lot of companies use analytics, but when they look at a resume like mine, it reads airplane, airplane, airplane. So the one of the only places I could actually jump into was commercial airlines here in the States, and it actually allowed us to, kind of transition. Um, that was a very big deal for me. A lot of that transitioned very easily. I did work with the heavies when I was in the Air Force, C-17s, C-9s, things like that, C-130s. So, in working with the commercial airlines, the bigger airframes had a lot of the same systems, and it was just a matter of nomenclature and things like that. So that transition was easy. It was, but the actual getting to that point was difficult because being that we're in the military, not necessarily connected to these outside companies, uh, you don't necessarily have the in as soon as you get out. And that is, for me, one of the things that makes transition for a lot of the military difficult because a lot of our vernacular and things like that doesn't translate, but we know exactly what we're talking about, and it's the same in the civilian sector. But when we put it on paper, they don't know what we're talking about. So that was a very big, difficult piece because they don't know exactly what we're talking about, even though we can be talking about the same thing. And then the other piece of that for me is location. I was in South Carolina when I separated from the military and had to go to Atlanta to find a job. So that immediate transition, I mean, you're looking for housing, things like that. And you have to set yourself up for success prior to going to a place like that because you have to be ready to, get a house, transition to kids, find a job, and things like that. So that was it was a daunting task, but I'm very happy that I have that experience because it gives me I feel an edge now in order to network and speak with other veterans as they transition.
So, did you find an issue or any difficulties losing the sports team or the sports structure that you had in the Air Force? Did that impact anything for you when you transitioned back into civilian life?
Um, not not really, because of my injuries. Back, knees, things like that. Running a desk like I was in the military wasn't necessarily a problem for when I came out. So that was, something that I was more apt to do. But as I've um, moved into other jobs, into other careers, um, things like um, standing for long periods of time has impacted capabilities. Um, things like that with my back and my knees. So those are pieces that have impacted further down the line, not necessarily immediately.
All right, and you have an event coming up, and that's um, something that I've seen with the work that we both do with Heroes, Badges, and Warriors, bringing people together.
Absolutely.
An event that I had a chance to be a part of this past year
Yeah.
for the first time. I think this is what year 4 coming up next year,
Third year. Third year.
third year. So,
Yeah.
and that's the Gar Week, which I didn't know what I was getting myself into when I went. John's just like, hey,
You want to go?
we're doing a fundraiser for Heroes, Badges, and Warriors. We need a representative, so I went out
Yeah.
and the week there. And something that I noticed right out of the gate was the amount of veterans and first responders that were involved in that event. Um, I can't think of anyone that I spoke to that I hung out with for that week that wasn't either a veteran or first responder or family of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was just something that's interesting. And if you want to talk about it a little bit, John, I'd love to, give our listeners kind of a preview of what's to come, some of the big things that are come this year, what you feel like sharing.
Absolutely. Well, first, first responders and veterans kind of gravitate towards each other. It's one of those things where um, you don't necessarily know, but you can see it from a distance, and you just kind of start conversations, right? With the event, this is our third year coming up. I've been in the cigar industry for about 5 years now. And I throw an event that is a week long celebration of cigar culture. And a lot of the military personnel that I've dealt with over time has really been a big part of that, right? Because I was introduced to cigars in the military, different levels of um, the hierarchy, enjoyed cigars. I even had moments where I was smoking cigars in my colonel's offices after hours, drinking scotch. So, some really good memories with that. So I wanted to bring that level of camaraderie and togetherness to an event. And what better place to do that than in Tampa, which is Cigar Mecca. This is actually one of the biggest cigar places in the country. It was at one point in time, Tampa made 70% of the cigars that went into the system in America. Yeah, so it was a very huge um, injection from here, and nobody else in the world at that point in time was doing anything else of that magnitude. So we try to celebrate the history, the heritage, and the tradition of those individuals. A lot of those um, were military. A lot of those were first responders and had to find other, places and things to do and things like that. A lot of them were also immigrants because that's what they came to the country and knew how to do. So a lot of that is kind of the intermingling of those two cultures and worlds. So for the event, we try to celebrate that, and we try to bring people together and put them in environments where it's lively but not overly stimulating. It's very relaxing to sit and smoke cigars, things like that. We try to bring in different foods from different cultures to give everybody, kind of a different experience at those moments. And it's just really nice to be able to sit down and just get to know other people. I call the cigar the great equalizer because it's one of those things where you can be sitting next to a garbage man and a billionaire, and everybody's talking about the game or business or uh, anything under the sun, because that's what the cigar has the capability of doing. It can blend everybody together, and at that moment everybody is equals. So I love that about the culture. I love that about that piece. So that's what a lot of what I try to do. And working with Heroes, Badges, and Warriors, I actually started doing fundraisers. So we have a golf tournament, and from that golf tournament, we do fundraising, and we donate that money to Heroes, Badges, and Warriors to try and support that, which is a company, which is a nonprofit that is near and dear to my heart because I know the actual founder and have worked with them for a few years. That's where I met Dorothy and Mark and all of those good things. Um,
Mhm.
but the event is coming up in March. It's going to be the first week, March 6th through the 10th. We're going to kick it off with the VIP meet and greet at the Ash House in St. Pete. The owner used to be the VP of sales for Camacho Cigars before it was bought by Davidoff. So he's a wealth of knowledge. His cigars are made by AJ Fernandez, which is one of the top people in the industry right now. Everything he touches turns to gold. Then we're going to go to what a lot of people call the big box stores. And we're going to run into Cigar International and start off with a party with Nish Patel, which is Rocky Patel's brother. And the Patel cigar brand is considered to be one of the four pillars of the cigar industry right now. So it is a very major player in the cigar world. Great guy, comes out, real high energy and really gets into a lot of that with the crowd. So that's going to be amazing. Thursday, we have Cigar Castle, which is a beautiful place. They actually host a lot of veteran and first responder events there for people like the Smoking Shields, which is an organization of first responders and veterans cigar club, which is really cool. We're going to hang out there for a little while, and we're going to have Rick Rodriguez, which is another rock star out of the cigar industry, come out and celebrate that time with us. He was the man who made the Attic cigar and the Amazon Basin, and he stepped out to make his own company, West Tampa Cigars, and he's going to join us Thursday morning. So that's really exciting. Thursday night, we're going to have a great time at a female veteran-owned cigar lounge in Brandon. It'll be a wonderful time to hang out with Ursula and her sister Sharon. Then Friday morning, we're actually going to do something a little different. We're actually coordinating with JC Newman and La Ferrona Cigars to do cigar rolling classes and blending classes for people. So people will actually get that opportunity. It's a very unique experience. And, everybody looks at it as something that's so simple, but it's really an artisan skill to get it to be done properly. And Mark can tell you, he was at the last one rolling cigars.
It is an experience, and you think that it's simple because I've had my share of complaints about a poorly rolled cigar. Some of the machine made. I have a new experience, but what was cool about it was I got to sit at the rolling table with JC Newman's Premier Roller
Yeah.
that hand rolls their Premier line in Tampa, and he's the one that's working with me rolling these cigars that I got to take with me afterwards, which is just a phenomenal experience. But I don't want to let the cat out of the bag for everything, John. You got to leave some mystery on it, but I can tell you, last year was insane.
Beautiful.
I'm looking forward to this year and looking forward to the new people. But I want to bring on John Norred, Marine Corps vet, and we'll just leave it at that. We'll let the other John, with a lead from the front, take it off. Good morning, John. How's my West Coast brother this morning?
For California, it's pretty chilly. Like I said, we went under 50, and for us, that's freezing. So, but I'm doing
Chili.
good.
Come to Canada. I'll show you chili.
Yeah. I think the coldest place I've ever been on Earth would have been Afghanistan, especially in the Hindu Kush Mountains. It's pretty cold there. So just a long story short, I got almost 3 decades of service. 2 of those I spent as a Marine. I was an infantry guy. Did pretty much everything in the infantry, from being a regular infantry guy, mortarman. I was a fire support guy. I also did scout sniper and was a reconnaissance Marine for a while too, in then went back to the regular infantry. All told, I did 12 tours between some tours in the 90s, and then, of course, after 9/11, multiple tours between Afghanistan and Iraq. I was severely wounded. Just celebrated one of my alive days, and ended my career in the Marine Corps. And then I wound up leaving that, and I went to. I had a hard time finding a job. I wasn't ready to get out of the Marine Corps, so I was kind of really ticked off about that. Uh, so I had some friends in the community, and I wound up getting into private security, what they call paramilitary for Department of Defense and what we call OGAs, other governmental agencies, and did that for a few years. Went back to Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, and a few other places, and had a lot of struggles that I was dealing with. I had traumatic brain injury from multiple blast injuries, to include a skull fracture from an RPG. Multiple injuries from gunshot wounds, IEDs. I'm sorry, improvised explosive devices, and vehicle car bombs. Um, so I was suffering from traumatic brain injury, and I had what we call PTS. A lot of people call it PTSD. I don't think it is a disorder, but for a lot of years I was hiding it. Pills, alcohol. Marriage went downhill quick. Had a divorce. It was a really bad, nasty divorce. I wound up getting in trouble with the law. Wound up doing time in prison, and now I'm just back to building my life. I'm starting new businesses, helping veterans, and pushing forward. I teach. I had a project management business that kind of put sidelined, and then right now I'm dealing with starting being a resilience and life coach, working with veterans, former professional and current NFL players, cancer survivor and cancer patients. Um, so it's one of those things that I've been dealt with. Uh, I know the path. I've been down there. Mark knows that I'm a survivor of suicide. Um, it was some dark times. It was really rough for me. Like this time of year, I used to tell people, from October 1st to February 1st, I want to go to sleep. This time of year, like, it brings back everything, brings back a memory. Um, we were talking about like November 8th was the 19th anniversary of the day we went into the Battle of Fallujah, second Battle of Fallujah. In that battle, my unit led the charge. We had, it was 85 KIA, 850 wounded. Um, Average firefights 3 to 4 feet. The amount of devastation that we had and saw, it, it's you don't come back the same from that. And I had a long time and a hard time dealing with it. Like I said, every a memory. We like yesterday was the Marine Corps birthday, but one of the worst days of my damn life was the Marine Corps birthday in 2004. Um, it was funny, we were talking about cigars. I remember getting a Macanudo cigar from my battalion commander, and it was just one of those days. It was a rough day. We lost a lot of kids that day, and I remember having that cigar, and I just that night sitting on a rooftop, you know, firefights going off, the EC-130s lighting up the city, and I was just smoking the cigar, trying to have some kind of normalcy. Yeah, so it's been a long struggle for me. I've done a lot of work on traumatic brain injury, on PTS. Uh, Now my goal and my mission in my life is just to help people, to help my veterans, to help people understand that there is a way out of this, and teach resiliency. And those are the things that I've been working on very hard. Um, Taking that warrior mindset to all aspects of life, whether it's divorce, whether it's you're struggling with cancer, you're struggling from traumatic brain injury, PTS, transitioning from the military, which it doesn't matter what your MOS, combat or non-combat. It's a shocking experience. I mean, trying to coming from our world to a civilian world where you have 350 million Americans and only 0.045% serve. So you have 2 million that serve 350 million. And we have about 18 million veterans right now that are alive and walking around from World War II through modern, right? But it's still such a small percentage. So there's this massive disconnect between us and them. So I'm trying to educate both civilians and military to bridge that gap, so they can understand us. Because a lot of times people have we talked about a podcast recently where we were talking about stigma. We were talking about stereotypes and misconceptions. Most people get their view of the military from social media, the news, and so on and so forth, especially books and movies. And it's just wrong and obtuse. And a lot of us are fighting this tooth and nail, saying, hey, not everybody's like that. This is not who we are. This is not how we are. And trying to make people understand that we're everyday people. We're your neighbors. We're your sons, you know, your daughters, your brothers. We're out there. We had something traumatic. We had something we experienced, or maybe we didn't, but we served. We chose to wear the pickle suit, put our butts on the line, and because we believed in something bigger than ourselves. We had some greater love of something bigger than ourselves. We loved our country. We loved whatever. We wanted to change the world. We wanted to expand our future. So all of us have different reasons, but all of them come to that commonality. And people, I see now, so many veterans are doing. I help out with veterans for entrepreneurial. So many veterans are just doing great things. And as Mark said, veterans and first responders do kind of go together because through trauma and through pain, a lot of times there's that constant. I've met several first responders that have seen, a lot of trauma as well. And it's through that trauma we both can heal, we both can talk. I don't have to explain to him, he doesn't have to explain to me. We understand it. We don't have to get into the details. It's like, look, I saw some really effed up stuff, and I need to get it off my chest and talk about it. And there's all those things in there where you self isolate, pills, booze, drugs, whatever. I have so many friends I've lost. I told Mark this, and I'll share it with you all. I mean, I went to 17 funerals in 4 years, and half of those were suicides. So it's a huge thing to me. It's very impersonal and in my face. It's something that I've been on a mission to help as many as I can. And when it kind of went from veterans to also NFL guys, also to people that are dealing with it and are regular everyday guys. I mean, when you look at the suicides across the country, 84% of suicides are men. We have a problem, people. We have to address it. So that's one of my goals. And I know this time of year, like I said, I reach out to all of my warriors this time of year because, you know, this is an extremely hard time for us. It brings back good memories, it brings back bad memories. And it's good to just get out and talk to people, reconnect with your buddies, do that buddy check, call them up and say, hey man, how are you doing today? Um, you'd be surprised how it can change your life. When you got a gun to your mouth, your phone rings and you're like, I don't want to talk to this dude. But you answer the phone, he's like, hey brother, how you doing? Not so good. And then you start talking. And then you can save a life by a simple phone call. Mine was. So that's my story. And I got to meet Mark through the same program and Dorothy, and you guys were great when you had me on. And again, hopefully this turns into something where we can reach out and help a lot of people.
Absolutely. John, I just want to thank you for being vulnerable with us and sharing what you did. I mean, if you've never been where you've been, you don't know. And you know, listening to you share that aspect and that part of the story is, sometimes painful to hear. But we all know that that's something that you deal with, that you've seen, and any way that we could support you, please let us know. Here for you anytime. And I know it's easier to speak to your brothers and sisters that have served with you, but as a veteran ally, where I'm here for you too. And I just thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. As you can see, I have veterans, my own veteran family behind me here that are uh, actually my blood, and so they never shared any of that with us. As a matter of fact, I didn't meet my great grandfather at all, but my uncle certainly did. And you know it's in hearing your stories, it's like sometimes, like when you guys share it, it's like we're there with you, and not in any way taking away from what you've been through and what you've seen, but we're here to support you in any way that we can. And so thank you so much for sharing what you did. And like you said, this is a difficult time of the year for a lot of people. And so we're here to help and support in any way that we can. And even if it's coming to an Angels 14 call. If you don't know what that is, Fridays at noon Eastern Standard Time, there is a veteran community where we come together for our camaraderie. We're smart asses and we just love on each other. And if one's down, we're all there. We've got your six. And that's all I need to say. For those of you that don't know what that is, let me know what, or message me and I'll tell you what that is. But we're there for each other. And so if you are a veteran or a first responder or active duty member, let us know and we will connect you with this amazing group. Because I know that it fills me up and I'm just an ally. So it fills me up every week. So thank you.
Yeah,
And I want to.
it took a while to be vulnerable. I mean, like I said, being authentic and real and being vulnerable is part of the healing process. But being able to get the story out there, it's very difficult to tell sometimes, very difficult to share. But at the same time, it's helped me heal. And if if my story gets out there and help somebody else not make the same mistakes I did, that means that all the much more to me. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Oh, that's right. I wanted to touch on a couple things, but we'll touch on the you're sharing your story, and I know everyone on this podcast that Dorothy and John know a lot of my story with what I've gone through, and especially going through recently as a former firefighter, which still sounds weird to say. But it's having that camaraderie and finding that those shared life experiences, knowing that trauma is trauma. And I know I can call John up and say, "Hey, John, it's a bad day," and we could not talk about anything that's going on, or I'm having a rough time, and John's gotten that phone call from me. Hey, it's a bad day. I just need to talk to someone, and we end up talking about training dogs, and nothing was bothering me. And it's just knowing that there's somebody on that other end. But I want to touch, that making a phone call, that doing those buddy checks, can absolutely save a life. And in my own fire department, we've had that happen where somebody just picked up the phone and just reaching out, checking on somebody that maybe might have seen something, has saved somebody's life.
Yeah.
But on the other end of it, whether it's military, first responder, firefighter, law enforcement, hospital worker, when we're on the job, when we're on duty, when we're serving, it's second nature to us when we get in trouble, when we need help, call. In the military, you're calling for a rapid reaction force. You're calling for air support. You're calling for fire team. You're calling for reinforcements. You're calling for backup as a police officer. In the fire service, we get in trouble, we're calling a Mayday. In the in healthcare and the hospital systems, they're calling for a rapid response team. If something's going sideways, something's going south, they need help. We don't do that in our private lives. We don't do that when we take the uniform off. And it's mind-boggling when you think about it, that I know John and John, you get in trouble when you guys were serving, you guys were something happened, you knew exactly what to do, like it was second nature when you needed help. The same thing with me. If I went down in a fire, I knew it like it was second nature what I had to do to get that help to come to me. But once that uniform comes off, it's almost like we go stupid. And I'll be blunt because we don't pull punches here, guys. We become stupid with asking for help. And I don't know if it's a pride thing, if it's an ego thing, but help's there. And a lot of times it's just realizing that you're not alone. And if you're going through something, there's the various hotlines that you get somebody, but start calling. If you're going through something or you're having a bad day or you're thinking about taking that step and ending your life, before you do it, start calling. Pull your phone, start with the first number, and go to the end. And I guarantee you, by the time you get to the end of your contacts list, somebody's picked up. And you'll get somebody on the phone that'll be there to talk to you, let you know you're loved, let you know that you mean something to them, and that you're not alone. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that isolation and that feeling like you're alone. And we do see it with our first responders. We see it especially with our transitioning military. coming back that your whole world changes overnight.
It's
Yeah.
sometimes though when you come from a certain culture, the what we call the warrior culture, where I come from, asking for help is not a priority. It's one of those things where if it's not related military, when it comes to like mental health, you don't ask for help. That's a career ender. That's scarlet letter, and your teammates are going to be, not going to want to go down range with you. So you keep it and you suffer in silence. And I think for us to ask for help, you're in that warrior mentality, and you're like, I don't need anybody's help. You feel isolated because civilians don't want to talk to you, or you don't understand them. People, you come home. I try to explain how people, this type of war, I might get into a firefight. I might get into an IED blast. And then 72 hours later, I'm sitting in the middle of my goddamn living room, and I'm supposed to be fucking normal. And people are, I can't handle being touched. I don't want to be, I can't, it's on, nobody gives a shit. There's nothing on the news. People don't even know the war's going on. They're just walking around like it's every other day. And your friends are over there dying and nobody gives a damn. And you even isolate even more because there's no connection. I mean, it's not like, everybody's behind the war or that kind of thing. So it was very hard to reach out and ask for help. It's easier when someone contacts you. Like I said, we have to be proactive with our own buddy and contact them. I know in my community, whether it's the special operations community or the Marine Corps or the Warrior Club, I have to be on top of it because these guys are not going to call. They're not going to ask for help. They're not even going to give you any warning signs. They're going to smile on your face and say, I feel great, and then go in their garage and take care of business. So you have to call them, you have to see the signs. And it took me years to learn it. It took me years to ask for help. I mean, asking for help was the hardest damn thing I ever did, to walk into the VA and say, hey, I'm effed up. I need help. I'm having nightmares. I'm having panic attacks. I can't see. I'm drinking too much. People I see on the street, I just want to choke them out. I can't stand this anymore. I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. That was 10 years ago, and that took me a lot of help to get through that. But you're right. You have to get those calls out there, and the hardest part is asking for help. It's like when we're in uniform, it's one thing, but when we get out, there's that isolation. We don't trust our neighbors. We don't trust the people down the street. It's not like I'm going to go to the local bar and ask the bartender. It's just so hard to get out there and ask. So it's like if I don't have a first responder, or I don't have, a fellow veteran, I'm not going to feel comfortable or safe. I'm not going to feel vulnerable. I give you my vulnerability. So I think that's an important thing to remember. Like with you and I, it was an instant connection because of our shared trauma, and that was a huge thing for both of us to connect on. You helped me, I helped you. So it's something that just spiraled from there. But you're right. It's extremely difficult to how we can do this. We click off a safe. We're still there, but when we get out of the military, for some reason, we stop asking for help. And it's like, it's to us, we feel like it's shameful to ask for help. And that's the hard part for us to get over. And I've seen so many veterans. I've seen them out here at the VA walking around. You can see it on their face and their body language. And they need help. But if you walk up to them and ask them, they're going to look you right in the face. They're going to smile and say, no, I'm feeling great. I'm doing great. Semper Fi. And they're going to walk away. And you know damn well that kid is hurting. So how do you reach that? You just got to get in their way.
Well, part of that.
Oh, go ahead, John.
Well, part of that is because we're taught team. We're taught small circle. And we don't trust outside of that circle. And as you kind of move base to base, your circle does grow a little bit. But like you said, we can't walk into a bar and just trust the bartender, or go down the street and trust our neighbor. It takes things like heroes, badges, and warriors to be available, and be able to bridge that gap, and like John said, you have to actually check up on your people and talk to your people, and you know give them that resource so that they can, hey, you know what, I do need to go get help. I do need to go have that conversation. And even then, it's a process to work through. It's definitely not one pill and done. And it's a lot of work behind it, and a lot of people are scared of unpacking those bags and doing the work to get through it because, like you said, hit IEDs, missions, things like that, where, you're watching, your buddy that you just had a barbecue and a beer with 2 nights ago, just got blown away, you know, things like that are, earth shattering, to people, and then to expect them to be normal when they walk back in the door is unrealistic. It's something that, like you said, over 99% of the people in the regular world couldn't even fathom doing. So that is for me the piece where all that kind of comes together, and it is the shared trauma, but we have to, be able to deliver that message of we all have similar shared trauma so that we can make people comfortable in order to have that conversation with us.
And this comes down to the stigma around it,
Yeah.
and a lack of understanding. Um, and the more that I read, the more that I research, the more I'm interacting with people, I'm finding this. It's because mental health is abstract. You can't see it.
Mm.
You can see, somebody's visible scars. You can
Yeah.
see a scar from an injury.
Mm.
You can't see those invisible injuries that happen with mental illness, that happen with post-traumatic stress, that happen with traumatic brain injuries. Those aren't outward showing. You don't see that, and that stigma that because it's not looked at because people don't understand it and they see it as this taboo kind of subject, where they think, oh, you have a mental health issue. They think of one who flew over the cuckoo's nest. With the padded rubber rooms and the insane asylums,
Mm-hmm.
and that, and it becomes even more isolative and ostracizing from the community. And that's something that we need to change in the fire service. We're starting to get to that point, but I found with like the younger guys that the 3 to 5 year guys, um, advocating for them to go find somebody and establish with somebody and start seeking help and talking about their experiences now and learning how to cope with them in a healthy way instead of going to drugs, to alcohol, into less, into the unhealthy coping mechanisms to deal with what they're seeing. I think that's something that needs to happen in the military, that we're so far behind the times with the information that we have, that still having that stigma that, oh, hey, you have this, you have post-traumatic stress. Well, we can manage it, we can treat it. You're not broken. And far too often we're looked at, those of us with it are looked at as we're broken. And we're not. We may be dented a little bit, but a can of Campbell's soup is still a can of Campbell's soup no matter how many dents are in the can. It's still good on the inside. And that's what, a lot of our veterans, first responders, with post-traumatic stress, with TBI, they're phenomenal people. They're just a little banged up, a little dented. But who isn't these days?
You know, it's a wound. It's I just recently learned. I went to uh, been through the neurologist. I'm having issues with my TBI where I stutter and I have slurred speech or I can't get the words out. So I've been working on that. The VA's come a long way, but they still have a long way to go. But again, it's never too late. Some VAs are better than others. The one out here, they have a great combat veterans PTSD group. They also have a great traumatic brain injury clinic that's been working with me, issues with balance and stuff like that. But I think the biggest thing we have to remember is you have to find a sense, instill a sense of worth, a sense of purpose. You take that uniform off, a lot of times you lose that purpose, you lose that direction. It's like, well, what the F do I do now?
Mm.
My entire identity was being a Marine. I was a Marine through and through. You could cut me and I would bleed camo. I was a Marine. And when that was gone and I had to take the uniform off, I didn't know who the F I was. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was terrified. Um, And it was just such a loss. It was like I had to walk away from an entire identity that who I was. I didn't know who I was or wanted to be.
Mhm.
So that was terrifying. And I had to learn that. And, I had to find my worth, find my purpose, know that I had worth, know that I was worthy of something, and understand the trauma I had to go through. But that took over a decade to learn that. So it's a process and it takes time. But I think one of the biggest things is finding that worth and finding the purpose. Like for me, I've always been an athlete, so I've always connected with athletes. But my go to, like I said, I tell everybody the truth that everything that saved my damn life was scripture, running, and fellow veterans. Those are the trifecta. That's what saved my damn life. Running was always my constant, and I run marathons and I run ultra marathons, and I work on that where I had this it's the same mentality that I had when I was in the Marines and running up and down hills and stuff like that. It's like we used to call it embrace the suck. So I try to do something hard every day. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable, do hard stuff. And these are things that kept us going and keep me going to this day, facing the hard stuff. I went from punching mirrors and pulling mirrors off the wall to now I look at the guy in the mirror and I'm like, wow, that's a sexy old bastard right there. So, I it takes time to get to that, but I've been taking it like a comedy. You gotta use humor. And in the infantry, especially in the military, and Mark knows exactly what I'm talking about because a lot of first responders get this too, is this extremely dark sense of humor. But grasp that and use it because it's one of those things. Humor is one of the best things in the world. It's the best thing to heal. My hero was Robin Williams, and I always kind of do the ad lib thing, and people say, "Hey, you kind of look like him because I have the nose, right?" So you got to use that humor. When I learned to laugh at myself, and I learned to laugh at trauma, and I learned to use that humor, it got me through. Like I said, it got me through war. It got me through divorce. It got me through suicide. It got me through prison, and it got me through cancer. And you're sitting in that oncologist office, and you're receiving chemo, and you're sitting there going, "Man, this just sucks." And you see a guy across from you and he's going through the same thing, and then he just starts laughing and he goes, "Hey man, this is a hell of a weight loss plan, isn't it?" And you just start laughing. And these are things that I found that, oh, I could tell you all sorts of other stuff, but not on this platform. But we do have a dark sense of humor, but that sense of humor is what breaks the ice, and it helps people to be vulnerable in a way that they weren't going to be otherwise. And there's other avenues. And again, just a simple run. Hey, Devil Dog, let's go on a little run. A little 3-4 miles. And you'd be surprised after a run, it has all these endorphins, and people will start being vulnerable. They start to open up. They start to talk. You're like, "Hey, man, you saved my life today. I was thinking about, driving out to the desert and putting a gun to my head today. And, that run saved his life." So these are things that you can do and reach out to. It doesn't have to always be a run, but it doesn't have to be, like you said, share a cigar with the guy, make him feel normal. I think the biggest thing is we're tired of feeling like a square peg in a round hole. We want to be normal. Talk to me about, like me and Mark, when we talk about trucks, we talk about guns, we talk about hunting, we talk about women, fast cars, fast women, that kind of thing. So it takes us outside of that, and we don't have to dwell on the trauma or what we're dealing with at that point in time. And there's a healing in that. And then once that comes through, then we talk about the trauma that we shared and stuff. But at first, we talked about cigars and bourbon and everything else first. So these are things that you just have a conversation with somebody, and you're going to realize that that can change the whole dynamic. That's just my 2 cents. But Mark, yes, well on point there.
That is powerful. And there's a lot of what you gentlemen have shared today. And I mean, I've interviewed over 30 or more veterans and first responders in the last 2 years. And the one thing that is common is, they lose their identity in the uniform and they don't know how, once they come into civilian life again, because they're so expected, they're supposed to, oh, well, now you're home. So now you're home 24/7 with somebody, and you just really, you don't know how to be with each other anymore. So it's relearning even how to be with your own family. I was just on Sports Link a couple weeks ago, and Anna is a spouse of a retired veteran, and now that he's home, she has to, uh, redo life all over again. And how do you do that? What does that look like? But it's communication with each other that is going to get that out. She doesn't understand what he's seen, and he doesn't talk about it. Right. And I'm not just meaning in this particular instance, I'm meaning like everybody. Because you don't want to, you don't want to traumatize, I guess, or whatever, you know, it's, oh, you just wouldn't understand. Well, no, I'm not going to understand because number one, you won't tell me. And number two, you're not communicating that. So, but thank you for sharing that, because there is that, there is that transition time where you're so used to being in that uniform and what that uniform means to you. And it's different for everybody that's inside of the uniform. And to go from, being a hard ass general or sergeant or whatever rank that you were to coming home, and now here you are, you're just dad, or you're just the husband, or you're just somebody's uncle, or you're just not just, but that's I'm just putting into words what I've heard from
No, that's
several.
part of it. That's a very big part of it, is you're just dad. You're just the husband. So
Right.
it changes the dynamic of it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
finding that new identity. It's finding that new identity as well as grieving,
The old
the loss of
identity.
it. And the three of us on here, and the millions that I hope will watch this and see this. For so long, for years, you identified as you're a Marine. You're the Air Force. You're a firefighter. You're a police officer. That's what you're known as. That's who you are, and that's what you identify as. And then coming out of it, it's I'm trying to change my mindset of, well, I'm just dad. And it's like, no, I get to be a dad.
Mhm.
I get the opportunity to be it there 100% of the time for my kids. And as hard as it is to say, it took a lot, and I'm still dealing with it. Still trying to come to grips with it. Of something that's just an amazing opportunity that I get now to be a dad 100% of the time to my kids, to my children. Still trying to come to grips with, hey, I'm not a firefighter.
Mhm.
But something I do want to ask for everyone, a very near and dear friend, a brother, a mentor of mine. He's a Navy vet. He's been there for me through thick and thin. He's overcome an immense amount of adversity. I hope to one day, as he heals and gets to a point, that we'll be able to have him on to share his story. Captain Chris, he was burned recently, fighting a fire, and is currently in the burn center with his recovery, severe burns to his hands and arms. If everybody out there, sorry, it's hard talking about it, because I love the guy. He's my brother, and it's sad that that he's going through this. But just want to wish Chris a speedy recovery. And if everyone tonight, if you keep on his thoughts and prayers, one of the hardest things for a firefighter is to have one of your brothers go down on the job, have one of your brothers burned, severely burned, and end up in a burn center. And especially knowing what he's overcome to continue his career. Like I said, I hope to have him on this one day, because his story is truly remarkable. As we move further with other episodes, but we're getting towards that hour mark now, and I promise on the first one that we'll try to keep these at that drive home time limit at that hour. John and John, I love you too. Really appreciate you guys coming on, sharing your insights, sharing some of your experiences on this Veterans Day. You guys know how to get a hold of me. I'm always available. My phone's always on for you gentlemen. Thank you for always being there for me. Hope to see everyone that tuned in to listen to Cigar Week this year. That
Great.
Calorie doesn't know it yet, but we are going to be doing a special broadcast of the Mayday moment from Cigar Week.
That's good.
Yes,
Let's do it.
it's on the books. It's been announced. That's one of mine. I'll not ask permission. I'm just going to do it type deals. And hope to see everyone there. Everyone have a safe Veterans Day. Have a safe week to come. Can't wait to hear some of the feedback, some of the comments from everyone that's seen this. like it, share with your friends. If there's anything that you guys want to hear about, talk about, any veterans, first responders, law enforcement, teachers, healthcare workers, nurses, doctors that want to come on and talk, shoot us an email, shoot us a post in the comments. Dorothy will put the email up here and momentarily. Get a hold of us. We'd be more than happy to bring you on, more than happy to talk about it. If you have a story, put a comment that you do, we'll get a hold of you. If you want us to share your story. And, the light will come out tomorrow. As long as the sun comes up, there's always hope. And you're not alone. Don't be afraid to reach out and call somebody. Because somebody else, there's always somebody that's gone through it, and something that I've tried to look at and tried to, counsel, the younger guys on the job, is that whatever you're going through, somebody's gone through it too. It doesn't matter. There's no time frame on trauma. There's no time frame on experience when it comes to what you've seen. If something's bothering you, talk to somebody. And if the first person doesn't respond well to you, find someone else. Don't stop till you find someone that's willing to sit down and talk to you and listen. And you're not alone. And let's hope that the more we get out there, the more we talk, that we can get that suicide rate down to zero. So, any final comments from anyone else?
I just want to put in there.
Having me on here.
Sorry, I just wanted to connect with John Norrid. That is John's email address. So, if you want to connect with John.
Yeah, and again, like I said, it's all about, let's talk. If you need to talk, shoot me an email and we'll get on the phone or whatever. I spent the other night till 2 a.m. talking to a police officer from Phoenix who was having a very rough time, and I was absolutely blown away that I could help him, and I'm glad that I could help him. Still not used to talking to police officers, but we're working on that. But no, we come to a commonality, and I was able to help him, and I'm glad to do so. And that's all I want to do is help people. I thank Dorothy for so much for putting me on this platform. Mark, I love you, brother. Bottom of my heart, man. I love you, you big bear. So, and then John, it was glad to meet you.
It's a pleasure.
Stay in touch. And again,
Absolutely.
Mark, happy birthday. You're 50 now. The old guy club? No.
No. 39. I got a year before 1 year of my 30s left.
I just hit 51, so it's like fine wine. You age nicely. That's what I'm.
Yeah, more like a pickled egg.
Well, I just have to say, as a civilian, I would love nothing more to see our nation completely healed. And I just want to thank both of you all three of you for your service, since this is Veterans Day and Remembrance Day here in Canada. So remembering all those that didn't make it home from deployment. So we honor you and we thank you for your service. And for any family member that is out there that is struggling as well, with having your spouse or your dad or your brother or your uncle in service, if you need help and support, we're here for you as well. So thank you, gentlemen, for your service, and really just anybody who's watching that is a veteran, please connect with us. We'd love to hear from you. And in the new year, I have spent the last 2 years with all my American friends, and I feel like I'm on an island because I'm from Canada, but that's okay. I started with the US and working my way home. And so 2024, I really want to connect with my Canadian veterans as well, make it a point to help and serve you as well, and that we're going to bridge the gap between the US and Canada. We're going to make it all, we're all going to make it one big one anyways, but I feel that, I've done a lot in the US and it's time to help my Canadians as well. So connect with us. I did put my email in the comments, and would love to hear from you. I had no idea that my stepson, his dad's actually a veteran. I just found that out Thursday night before we picked him up to go to the Spitz game. So there's one that I'm going to connect with this, soon and see how we can support him. And yeah, but other than that, I just want to thank you so much for your service. And it's an honor and privilege to be with you here today and to have you on our platform. And I know John and Kelly and I have been friends for a couple of years, and I really want to get to know John Norad a lot better too, and see how we can support you. And Melanie has been blowing up her comments here. I got to bring her. Dennis, okay. Well, we'll definitely get Dennis on the show. Melanie is a huge supporter of Veteran LA as well, and she's part of the Angel Sport Team community, and she supports the show a lot as well. So thank you, Melody, for your for being here and always supporting our veterans. And she's actually a writer, and she each week she has a feature that Tuesdays are her features, and it generally is a veteran community or a veteran organization that she highlights. So shout out to Melody as well, because she's part of our family. And yeah, with that, guys, have a great Veterans Day, Remembrance Day, wherever you're from, whether you're Canadian or US, we honor you all. And see you next week.
See you next week.